What's up, everybody? Thought I'd give you an update. Just got out of the doctor's office again. So, give you a little bit of update on the progress and kind of talk a little bit about that and kind of where my mind's going. I know I've mentioned this in some previous videos, I believe. But if not, I can go a little background here, but we can go ahead and, I guess, get on moseying down the road first. But yeah, first of all, if you're coming across this, right, single dad in his mid to late-ish 30s, right, dealing with a kind of a rare blood cancer disorder. It is treatable, it is curable. I got some steps I got to go through. I've been battling, quote unquote, right, or have had this for the last 8 to 10 years. Pretty much asymptomatic. If I didn't know I had this, I wouldn't really feel any different. At least that's what I say. But being that I've had it for a while, this thing got crooked on me. Don't really, sorry, no. Kind of what normal feels like, probably, right? From being anemic and everything else, I can kind of go into all this. But anyway, we're kind of in the final stretches with a lot of this processes. So the plan right now is I'm on a chemo pill, and then hopefully shrink my spleen. I have an enlarged spleen with this process, and then if I can shrink it enough, still going to have a splenectomy, which is fine. There's some concerns about that, and always some worries, but living without your spleen is definitely very doable, with my lifestyle I want to maintain. And then after that, recovery, which is probably 4 to 6 weeks, because they'll have to split me open and don't do anything laparoscopic with the size of it. I'll be on my way to a stem cell transplant for a curative approach. Given my age, my health, I have a really good possibility of just putting this behind me and moving on with my life after, recovery. It's going to be a 6 month to a year long recovery, most likely. Physically, I think I'm okay, mentally going through that, and lifestyle changes, not being active like I was, being in somewhat isolation for a minute, with, going through chemo and, some of the stressors of, the infection risks and, graft host disease, right? So, but, I got a long runway ahead of me, hopefully. If I was 65, 70, that when most people get this, it would probably be a little bit different. I would probably be waiting. But the longer I wait, the more opportunity is for me to not be able to have a successful transplant. Say the disease progresses, maybe I get some other ailment that makes me ineligible, right? So, that's where I'm at. But I've met with a couple surgeons, like them both, for the splenectomy. Obviously, I've never had any big surgeries like that before, so it's a little bit different. And obviously, being a single dad, pretty much on my own, besides my daughter up in this area, I guess the reality of being solo and alone hasn't really quite hit in yet, right? I got a good support system with my parents that live 5 hours away, and of course, I have a fairly supportive ex-wife, but obviously don't want to burden her with a whole lot of stuff as she has her own family and does doing her own thing, right? But we do share a daughter, so of course I got some concerns with that. Of course, my daughter's 7, so how do I communicate this to her, or do I mean, obviously I have to, but that's how do I do that properly without her worrying about it too much, right? So that's kind of an update currently. Again, I told you I was going to try to record more of these real life, average Joe kind of things, right? This isn't really what an average Joe would go through. It would be fighting a blood cancer, I guess. But I've put a lot of things on hold, probably here recently. Dating for sure. I know my page is called The Dating Dad, but ain't gonna be a whole lot of dating because I don't want to I don't feel like subjecting somebody to this process that I'm gonna go down in the next 3 to 6 months, right? So it's just not fair to them, especially from a long-term prospect. Maybe short terms, always open, but again, I'm not really prioritizing that. There's other things I have prioritized, specifically my health, right? Staying active, getting sleep, getting rest, eating well, spending time with family and friends, was the biggest thing too right now. So yeah, but got my sunglasses on. It's actually a sunny day in December in the Midwest, so take advantage of that. Don't really picture my life going down this route. It's really something I've kind of ignored, I guess, this whole process here for a while because I've been asymptomatic and have no real other concerns or issues associated with it. But now that we're crossing that bridge, some of the things have kind of set into reality, right? It's still easy to ignore and forget, and you should still live a normal life, not let it stress you out. But it's planning for the future has been difficult. Like what am I going to do this summer? What's vacations or boating? I don't know if there's anything's going to be on the table, and I don't know when it's going to be back on the table, right? So you kind of just living day by day, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think you should, to a certain extent. Obviously, you should have goals and plans, but right now my goals has been kind of trimmed down to making it through this and then bouncing back, stronger and better than before, in fairly different facets, right? I am looking forward to try to putting all this behind me and get back to maybe even more of a normal life than what I do now, especially with living within a large spleen. There's a lot of things you can't physically do that you maybe used to do, right? Off-roading, four-wheeling, playing sports to a certain extent, right? So obviously I do golf a lot, and that's low impact. Any kind of potential impact sports, you just couldn't really do. I've done some contemplating of obviously I think I've talked about this a little bit before, of just you can do everything right, or you think you do everything right, or you live to how society wants you to be or want you to do, right? You get good grades, you go to college, you graduate, you get a good successful job, right? And then from that aspect, things do break down. Things don't always go as the plan. You got to be able to lift and shift and make things work. So I'm going through a divorce. It wasn't on my to-do list, right? Getting this disease definitely wasn't on my to-do list, right? Battling what we do in this economy, I never thought in my life I would make as much money as I do now, but yet still not necessarily struggle, but you'd think you'd be living a little bit higher on the hog than you do right now, and you just don't. Things cost so much more, right? Obviously, paying child support doesn't help that. If I wasn't paying child support, it'd be a lot different, a little bit different anyway. But that's a mistake. It's a consequence of my actions, our actions, right? That I'm paying for. I don't have any regrets in that matter. But my plan is to make it through this. Physically, I'm not so concerned as I am just like mentally. pretty mentally strong though, but you never know until you go through something like what I'm gonna go through. You're not really that prepared. So, I'm not in a situation where I can just, live my best life until that comes, right? I got responsibilities with a daughter and things like that. I got bills to pay and all that stuff, right? So, I can't just, hey, I'm gonna go live in the Florida Keys for 2 months because I got no other obligations or responsibilities. That doesn't work for me necessarily. But just preparing myself for a different, my New Year's resolution for 2026 definitely is going to be different than it was from last year, right? So, and obviously your complaints from last year to this year, or your worries and has changed too. It's a little bit more kind of don't sweat the small stuff, because some of this bigger stuff could always appear and put your life in a different perspective. So, with that, just, I wish everybody if I don't make another video until after the new year, I hope everybody has a good Christmas and a good New Year. We'll talk to you again. Thanks.